All right, now to our next conversation. We see the World Bank release its 2023 Logistics Performance Index report, urging developing economies to boost their economic growth through improvements in logistics for goods transportation. The report is a measure of a country's ability to move goods across borders with speed and reliability. Well, joining me now is Mr. Adebayo Adeleke, founder, Supply Chain Africa, joining me right here in the studio. Great to have you.
It's good to have you. It's good to see you, finally.
Finally, yeah. With the last conversations we've had on the show, it's been virtual.
Absolutely.
Yes, and now we're in person. Thank you so much for honoring the invitation. So I'm looking at the report now. We see Nigeria has a score of about 2.6, points, and definitely is not as good as most of the developed nations we have. But how do you see this this score that we have right now?
I think Nigeria actually, in all sincerity, actually should be lower because I've been around for quite some time now. Traveling the country and the ability to move is the freedom of movement. If you cannot move freely within the country, then you cannot move goods and services. And logistics is the infrastructure that kind of laid those things to bear. Our road network is poor. We have about 160,000 kilometers of road, about 60,000 of it are paved. And if you cannot move those things through the road, the rail is absent, for the lack of a better word. And our intermodal, transportation infrastructure is absent. Our warehousing is deficient, considering, look at gentlemen that came before me talk about population, depending, I have a difference of opinion on Nigerian population anyways, but that's a different case in point. But those things have to be in place for our logistic performance index to be up. And I think Nigeria so far, I think they pretty much from last year, they haven't done that much shifting to the left or to the right. South Africa has remained stagnant as well, but it's quite improvement in Botswana. Egypt has relatively maintained the same thing. Rwanda came up as well. All these countries are making leaps and bounds, and all of it, for you to actually, we can actually build more roads. If you can actually build more roads, we can actually move up, because with roads, you can actually penetrate a lot of, you can bring product from areas of abundance to area of scarcity. Because right now, without that, we'll not be able to do anything. Our rail is absent. Our waterways, transportation is absent. We rely majorly on roads, and that road, we don't have enough of it. For example, state of Texas, where I reside currently, has over 600 and almost close to 690,000 miles, about close to about 1 million kilometers of road network. And Nigeria is bigger than Texas. And the road of Texas is bigger than the whole continent of Europe. But yet, Nigeria's population, Nigeria's land mass, in compared to Texas, is not that much. Maybe you had a little more state in the US. But Nigeria is bigger than Texas. But yet, Texas has over close to 1 million kilometers of roads. And yet, we still complain over there that we don't have enough roads. Those roads are necessary for economic development. They're necessary for, if Nigeria has to move up, and help in facilitating trade globally.
And looking at this logistics performance index, how can developing economies use this index to better manage their logistics? All
right. So if you're following it, you'll be hearing de-dollarization and deglobalization that is going on. After COVID, it shows a lot of fault lines in our supply chain and logistics globally. As you can see, a lot of, even till now, if you look at different logistics report, the economy is not where it is supposed to be globally, and largely because of supply chain issues. So now, for developing countries to be able to move up, there are a lot of things that needs to happen. They have to build more. And for them to build more, because a lot of people are reshoring to different areas to kind of decentralize or to decentralize, that hub in Southeast Asia, China, and the rest of Asia. So a lot of people want to kind of, move their stuff around so that they're not a single point of failure. And Africa has been a point. Most developing nations actually in Africa. A lot of people are looking to Africa. But for that to happen, our logistic performance index has to be up. So for us to be able to facilitate, manufacturing, we have to build more. And I cannot stress building more roads, building more port facilities, warehousing. If we can actually do those 3 areas, just those 3 areas, and make sure they're kind of locked in, because there's one point developing roads, there's another point making sure that those roads work for you. So if you build, which I've seen largely among some of the road infrastructures we're doing in Nigeria, they're not interlinking. The road, especially logistical roads, they have corridors. The flyaways, the flyover have to link into this. And some of Nigerian roads, sometimes the way they are constructed, you kind of wonder, they're supposed to be in sync with the urban and regional plan because all these things work in concert. They just don't work in isolation. So we have to build more. We have to build more. We have to build more.
And be intentional,
Exactly,
with the
exactly.
All right, let's look at the currency, aspect of trade at this time. We've been hearing a lot of talk about de-dollarization. You did mention it earlier, and I'm looking at it like, is that what's going to help us, out there with our trade if that actually happens? We've seen a lot of analysts have said that going to happen for the next 20 years, that the dollar will still remain, that major currency we run to for international trade. But would de-dollarization, will it have any positive impact for our trade?
No, not much. American dollar is still going to be the supreme for years to come. As the analysts have said, they know better than me. I'm just a supply chain and logistical guy. But apparently, there's a lot moving on. A lot of this thing is driven by geopolitical issues. You have to understand that as well. BRICS is one element that is coming together, and you can see their geopolitical alignment is completely different from the West. The West has democratic values, and you can say, and I think the reordering of the world order is going on as well. China, Russia, and those that have those kind of political construct, they're kind of gravitating towards that. People that have democratic values as well are kind of pandering to the West. And I think that structure is going to go for a while. But geography and demography is going to be the key player in this whole thing. And oftentimes, most of these things can be predicted. These things are not something that somebody just pull out of a hat. If you look at your geography and your demography and look at, okay, is it going to be? America is being bordered by two oceans, both the Atlantic and the Pacific. They're in a good position. Africa in itself, we're both at Atlantic on this side, we have Indian Ocean as well, we have Mediterranean. So we are positioned to do different things. So, but for us, I think our ability to continue to produce, we have the human capital, we have the resources, the natural resources that the world needs. The ability to tap into the value chain is going to be our key factor, because right now, a lot of things are moving outside the continent. The Russians are here to play, the West is here to play, the Chinese are playing already. And everybody that is giving all these things to Africa, they're not doing it out of their own free will. Everybody wants something out of Africa, which is fine. You can ask them, you can say, you know what? At least we are being used. Only good people being used. You can look at it from that construct. But at the same time, you also have to look at it at what extent are we mortgaging our future out? Because all these resources, that is driving out of continent, what are we gaining out of it? We have to be part of the value chain, because these particular resources are leaving the continent, but they're coming back, we're still buying back in high dollar. Can we be part of the value chain in such a way that by the time we give it to you, we have derived something tangible out of it? And I think with that, if we can actually kind of toe that line, I think we'll be in great shape.
And looking at the report, it says the biggest delays occur at the seaports and airports, and definitely that's something we've seen, right here in Nigeria. Have we had any improvement so far? No,
it's not. And I understand Lekki has started as well. It's going to those delays until we address those pertinent issues. Supply chain and logistics education is lacking on the continent. At least my estimation, we have over 100 million of supply chain and professionals across the continent. And to be honest with you, most of our certifications comes from the West. We have not actually inculcated our own indigenous and unique methods into our supply chain programs. So how do we continue to have Western processes to operate in African landscape? There'll be a lot of friction. So oftentimes, what you see the deadlock over there, and of course we have our own issues that are local to us, containers issues, fraud, and then we have custom issues as well. We have a lot of, I'll call it cultural nuances of, is it that corruption or bribery and all those things that are kind of, clogging the system. But ideally, I believe that if we've done a huge work, if we can actually do a due work in making sure that our supply chain professionals are educated. I've been advocating things for long that Africa as a whole should actually develop their own curriculum of how they want to be doing business. Now try to those kind of curriculum to fit into the Western and the global ways of doing things.
What kind of digital technology should we be looking at to boost ease of moving goods in the country?
There is a lot. There is a lot that's out there. As you look at the report, that the logistical performance in traceability and traceability and ability to view is one of the things. One of the huge issue in this report is transparency. That's what we saw during COVID. People couldn't view, they don't have eyes on their supply chain, they don't understand their supply chain mapping. So ability to actually craft supply chain mapping software that people can view where their product is at all the time. I'm not talking about, you're tracking your, go-karter or whatever, dispatch rider stuff. I'm talking about ability to have a view of us where your products are globally. So in your supply chain, I think means a long way. And more importantly, our end here is the issue of security. Security is the existential threat that plagues African supply chain. Not only a supply chain alone, but economic development, everything. So any technology that is going to help to kind of give freedom of movement, that is going to help people to be able to decide, to be able to move freely, because that in itself, if we can actually make improvement with our hand, we will see a huge improvement in our logistical performance index.
And definitely we need to move from being import dependent.
Absolutely.
And produce.
Absolutely. Build and produce.
Produce and produce. Thank you so much, Mr. Adebayo Adeleke, founder, Supply Chain Africa. It was great having your perspective today.
Thank you so much, Laddie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next we're going to be having the commodities market update segment. That's in a moment. Business Morning returns. Do stay with us.